to the Alameda County Board of Directors, Alameda County Water District Board of Directors meeting. Let's start with the roll call, please.
Directors Sethy,
Here.
Akbari,
Present.
Gunther,
Here.
Huang, here, and Weed.
Here. Please join us for the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. At this time, we have some remarks from the general manager related to our hybrid meeting, or so those of us who some are joining us online.
That's right, President Weed. Thank you. Just to make sure everybody can participate in our meeting today. Good evening. On behalf of the ACWD Board of Directors, I'd like to welcome the public's participation in this board meeting. My name is Ed Stevenson, and I serve as the district's general manager. Members of the public may participate in this board meeting in person or remotely by either using the Zoom application or by telephone. Any member of the public participating in person may approach the speaker's podium at the appropriate time. If you are participating via Zoom, we ask that you mute your microphones unless you're speaking. You may also be placed on mute by the district secretary. The district secretary will unmute participants at the appropriate times when the board is receiving public comments. In Zoom, you'll be able to view the presentation materials as they're presented to the board. At any time, you may submit a question or raise your hand in the Zoom app, and we'll be sure to call on you at the appropriate time. If you are participating by telephone audio, you may view the meeting agenda, the staff reports, and presentation materials, which have all been posted to the district's website at acwd.org, and follow along that way. Please put your phone on mute to assure the best sound quality for everyone. Zoom allows you to use your dial pad *6 to mute and unmute yourself, and *9 to raise or lower your hand. Those participating by telephone will also be given opportunities to address the board. This board meeting is being recorded and will be made available to the public for future viewing. Again, thank you all for attending, and President Weed, that completes my housekeeping remarks.
All right, thank you. We have public comments. Does anyone wish to address the board on an item which is not on our agenda this evening? There being none, public comments are closed. We have at the beginning of the meeting, probably our most rewarding meeting of the year. This is when we are able to give some awards to some very deserving youth and others in the community. This is for the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fairs, Excellence in Water, Wastewater, or Recycled Water Research, and the Water Clips Student Video Contest, and our award winners. So let me now turn it to our staff for the presentation.
Thank you, President Weed. And yes, this is our absolute favorite meeting of the year. We are thrilled to be joined by so many smiling faces, I'm sure, behind masks, and folks that were super happy to join us this evening. We are combining this item, this presentation item, along with item 5.6 on the agenda. That's the resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month. So at this time, I would like to welcome our Public Affairs Supervisor, Ms. Shireen Gonzalez, to get us started with this really cool event.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and a big hello and thank you to our guests. Tonight, we recognize the importance of water with a resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month. May is designated as Water Awareness Month in California. And in the past, the district has promoted Water Awareness Month, which focuses on educating Californians about the importance of water in all facets of their lives by encouraging involvement in water awareness activities at the local, regional, and statewide level, just like we're doing tonight. In promotion of this year's Water Awareness Month, and as we experience our third critically dry year and the entire state in drought with much being severe or extreme, the district will increase public outreach to raise awareness on the importance of water conservation and remind customers of ACWD's ordinance declaring a water shortage emergency. Some outreach highlights include enhanced customer engagement at community events, and we are excited to see our customers again face to face. Direct outreach to homeowners associations, multifamily residential sites, and city parks. We're also promoting our annual water quality report, and just yesterday conducted a webinar format landscape workshop to promote the district's Lawn Be Gone rebate and waterwise landscaping. And the real highlight is recognizing the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair's Excellence in Water, Wastewater, or Recycled Water Research Award with recipients in our service area, and awarding the Water Clips Student Video Contest winners with this year's theme appropriately focused on water conservation. Staff's recommendation by motion, adopt a resolution declaring the month of May as Water Awareness Month.
Thank you very much. We have the presentations in.
With the resolution, does it go to the board?
I think the board could take action on the resolution if at this
Okay.
time, if it would like to.
All right, fine. Do we have the water the resolution itself, which is item 5.6 on your agenda. It's near the bottom of the text. So it's been read. Do we have a motion to approve the Water Awareness Month in the month of May for the resolution?
I'll make the recommendation.
I'll second.
And moved and seconded. A roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang,
Aye.
and Weed.
Aye. Aye. Well, thank you.
Great. And with that, I would like to introduce Renee Gonzalez, Public Affairs Specialist, who has done a tremendous job managing ACWD's support of the Science Fair and Water Clips Student Video Contest. So without further ado, Renee.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez. Good evening, board, ACWD staff, members of the public, the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair Award recipients, their families and teachers here in person and watching online tonight. Tonight, we not only recognize May as Water Awareness Month, but it's a privilege and to honor the recipients of the Excellence in Water Research Awards. Each year, ACWD and 9 other water and wastewater agencies in the county co-sponsor the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair. This year's fair took place online Saturday, March 26th, and the awards were announced on March 29th. We're proud to have winners from our service area that won awards for their excellence in water research projects. The award winners placed first and second in the senior division and first and second in the junior division. We're fortunate to have so much talent right here from Fremont and Newark. As I said earlier, ACWD is one of 9 other water and wastewater agencies in the county to co-sponsor the fair. Tonight, we have Paul Eldridge, General Manager from Union Sanitary District. He's joining us online, the wastewater agency serving the Tri-City area. And he'd like to say a few words to our student award winners before we begin the ceremony.
Please.
Is Paul?
Yes, can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Great, thank you very much. I'm Paul Eldridge. I'm the General Manager of Union Sanitary District. And thank you very much for having me this evening. I'd like to say thank you to ACWD's board, their staff, and of course, all those in attendance this evening. It is such a pleasure to partner with ACWD to sponsor the Excellence in Water Research Awards at the Alameda County Science and Engineering Fair, and to recognize the research done by you students regarding subjects that pertain to our industries. ACWD and USD are very proud of all the winners, and we hope you scientists and engineers of tomorrow will someday join agencies like ours to help us address the challenges we face today and in the coming years. Thank you for your creativity in researching significant real-world problems and for your excellent workmanship. We are truly in awe of your achievements and can't wait to see what the future holds for all of you. Sincerely, congratulations, excellent work. And again, thank you very much for the opportunity to address all of you this evening.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Eldridge. And at this time, I'd like to request the assistance of President Weed to please come forward for the awards presentation.
And I would note that a number of teachers and others are watching this on Zoom. So to the extent that there's someone you'd like to commend and thank for your assistance, feel free to do so. Thank you.
And students, when I call your name, please come down to receive your award. So without further ado, let's get started. It is a pleasure to recognize the following outstanding students for their hard work and innovative projects at this board meeting. So first we have Bhuvi Kedia and Eshwar Namani. This year, the first place winner from the senior division is Bhuvi Kedia and Eshwar Namani from American High School in Fremont with a project titled A Water Filtration System for Removal of Arsenic, Nitrate, and Bacteria in Contaminated Groundwater by Granular Activated Carbon Treatment and Nanofiltration.
Feel free.
These students received a check for $200. Their teacher, Natalie Fernandez Rossi, is attending this presentation online and was also awarded with a check for $100.
Thank you.
Next, we have Adriana Victoria and Aaron Josh Peter. They are first place winners in the junior division from Basis Independent School in Fremont with a project titled Smart Drip Irrigation System. These students each received a check for $200 and their teacher Ranjini Varadan is attending this presentation online and was given a check for $100.
You have to look to the camera.
The second place winner in the senior division is Sahiti Belusu. Sahiti Belusu is a student from Basis Independent School in Fremont with a project titled Water Conservation Using Personalized Behavioral Nudges Based on Automated Disaggregation of Household Water Usage. This student received a check for $400 and their teacher Rachna Sharma is attending online and was given a check for $100. Congratulations, Sahiti. The second place winner is attending online. Soham Irasani is a student from Stratford Fremont Osgood Middle School with a project titled Moisture Sensor Based Automatic Plant Watering System. This student received a check for $300 and their teacher Swapna Maya was also given a check for $100. Swapna is viewing the presentation online. Congratulations, Soham. We'll send your certificate to you and your award. Thank you.
Did you want to say anything?
Yeah, actually. Thank you, Miss Maya and Mr. Maramba, our principal, for giving me the opportunity to participate in this event. This event definitely told me a lot about water and the importance of water in our society. So just once again, great thanks to everyone here. Congratulations to everyone here. And thank you to my mentors, my teacher, and all the staff.
Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations. Well, I think it's fair to say we have some really impressive talent from our local students here at ACWD. We'd like to think it's something in the water. And who knows, maybe someday these students who have demonstrated their passion for water will pursue careers in the water industry. And after the awards ceremony, you're all invited to a reception in our lobby. And the student award winners will have their projects on display and will be happy to discuss their award-winning research. Thank you so much. Congratulations to everyone. So you can have. Now it's time to recognize, now it's time for ACWD to recognize the talents and an important message developed by area students as we present awards for our third annual ACWD Water Clip Student Video Contest. So before introducing tonight's winners and guests, I'd like to provide a bit of background about the contest. In January, the contest was launched to give Tri-City Middle School and High School students a chance to create a 30-second video and help ACWD inform our customers about the importance of water conservation and how residents and businesses can save water now. This year's entries represented a wide variety of creativity and imagination while also showing students' understanding of the contest theme. I want to thank the teachers and school districts for promoting the contest and the students for their entries. The videos were scored by our panel of expert judges, and 6 videos were awarded first, second, and third place in the middle school and high school categories. Tonight, we present the board the winning videos and recognize our student winners. First, I'd like to introduce and give a big thanks to our panel of expert judges from TV, radio, and government. We do have some judges attending online tonight. I want to read their names. We have Negan Ashuri, Water Resources Engineer from the Bay Area Water Supply and Conservation Agency, Jerry Dove, creator, host of hit television show I Remember That Song, Pat Gokaskos, Vice Mayor, City of Union City, David Halbert, Alameda County Board of Supervisors, District 1, Arnie Lowlang, Video Systems Engineer at Ohlone College, and Mayor Al Nagy, City of Newark. Thank you, judges. Next, we will premiere the winning videos. To set the stage for how the presentations will flow, we will first announce the winner's name, and the student will come to the front, and then we will show their video. And students, we need you to please stay standing right here. Once all the winning videos are shown, we will present each student with their award from our board president. And so without further ado, here are the winners. So first we have, joining us online tonight is the third place winner, Needy Reju. Needy is a student at John M. Horner Middle School, and Needy received a check for $100. Her video is titled Wait, Water Matters. And so go ahead, Marion, can we play the video?
I was just wondering why water conservation is important. All animals and plants need water to survive. Water is a non-renewable resource, and we should make sure we don't waste it. In that case, how can I conserve water? There are many ways to conserve your water. You can shorten your shower time to 5-ish minutes. Wash only full loads of laundry and dishes, only doing 1 load per week. Install smart irrigation, find and fix leaks, or even order ACWD's Water Conservation Kit. To learn more about water conservation, go to www.acwd.org. One saves water.
Thank you and congratulations, Needy. The second place winner is a team entry from Srijani Vutukuri and Sanshre Vakalagada. Please come to the front. Srijani and Sanshre, Srijani attends Thornton Junior High and Sanshre is from Forest Park Elementary. They each received a check for $250 and their video is titled Save Water, a stop motion film.
How to save water. Water is very useful during emergencies such as earthquakes. Some tips we can use to save it are: Tip 1. Turn off the tap while you brush and save 200 gallons a month. Tip 2. Take a shower and you can save 10 to 25 gallons, unlike a normal full tub. Tip 3. Fix a leaking toilet and save up to 200 gallons of water. Look for ACWD for more information.
Thank you so much. And our first place winner is Emily Koo. Emily, please come forward. Emily attends the Circle of Independent Learning, and she received a check for $500, and her video is titled Water Tips and Tricks.
Did you know that the average person uses 101.5 gallons of water per day? To help reduce that amount, here are 3 things you can do to conserve water. Number 1, always completely turn off water after you're done using it. Number 2, take shorter showers and use less water during a bath. When you are taking a shower, more time equals more water. The last tip is to wash dishes with less loads and bigger amounts. And remember, even you can save water today.
Thank you so much. And now I will announce the winners in the high school division. The third place winner is a team. Their names are Gunther Sandhu and Ane Agrawal. Are they here? Awesome. Both students attend Irvington High School and they received a check for $100 and their video is titled How You Should Conserve Water.
Our environment is changing, and conservation measures for water are of the essence.
ACWD has announced we are now in the water shortage emergency.
A useful tip to conserve water would be to adjust your sprinklers to avoid watering the sidewalk or driveway.
You should also only run your dishwasher when you have a full load.
Reusing gray water can help conserve drinking water supplies and decrease your utility bill.
ACWD also has many rebate programs that can help you conserve water. You should check it out.
Thank you so much. Our second place winner is Yvette Venegas from Newark Memorial High School. Yvette received a check for $250 and her video is titled How to Conserve Water from Your Home. Congratulations. The first place winner is Anushka Madhavan. Anushka, you can please come down. Anushka is from Mission San Jose High School and she receives a check for $500. Anushka's video is titled Conservation Around Us.
We all use and drink water every day, so why should we limit our water consumption? Let's talk about the importance of water conservation. Due to our current water shortage emergency, it is crucial to reduce the amount of water we consume in order to protect our water reserves. You can conserve water by taking shorter showers, replacing old toilets, fixing leaks around your house, watering plants deeply and infrequently, and installing drip irrigation for shrubs and trees. For emergency notifications and to learn more, go to www.acwd.org.
Present each student with their award. Can I please ask President Weed to come down again for your assistance in awarding tonight's winners? So students, when I call your name, please step over to President Weed and you'll be able to pose for a photo.
Thank you.
First,
As you can tell, we're having the challenge of the mask making the transition out. But for photo opportunities, it's probably best for the mask.
Anushka Madhavani, first place winner. Second place winner. Gunther Sandhu and Ane Agrawal, third place winners. 2022 first place winner. Srijini Butukuri and Sanshre Bakalagada, second place winners. And our third place winner, Didi Riju, again is online. So Didi will be sending your award materials to you. Thank you.
Yeah, to see, have an opportunity to see here.
Didi Riju, are you online?
Well, we'll be coming.
Yes.
All right, well, thank you so much. We have some exhibits in the outside. What we have each of the students express and tell us what they did and how they accomplished their the award. So thank you so much, and thank you to the parents and the friends and family who are really the support structure which makes this possible, as well as the teachers. And each of you have a teacher that was involved with this, and we really appreciate their efforts. Lord, thank you very much.
All of the students submitted great videos, and their videos will be posted to our YouTube channel and shared on social media. In addition, the videos will be shown at our local movie theaters as commercials before the featured film. So congratulations to all the amazing students and their teachers. We're so excited to watch this contest grow and support our students in water education. And would the board like to express any more comments?
Start with Judy, then we'll come down.
Okay. So I would agree with President Lee that this is actually the best board meeting of the year every time. I'm always impressed with the talent, effort, and the creativity of all the submittals. Now, every year I told myself, wow, this is the best I've seen. And you know what? The following year, I get surprised again at how creative every one of you are. A big thank you to all of you, to actually all the students who submitted their project, winner or not, to us. All of you are winners, since you're helping us out by sending out water conservation messages. Thank you to the parents for all your support, helping us get the message out. Without your support, I am pretty certain that we would not have seen this caliber of submittals. And to all the teachers, every year, thank you for supporting our program. Thank you for coming out with creative way to help us get water conservation messages out. Great job, everybody. I am actually very looking forward to see the posters outside. And thank you for taking the time to join us in person. Thank you.
I'd like to thank everybody for coming down this evening. It's always a pleasure to see the local students, parents, teachers to come down to the meeting and present their talents. Incredible amount of talent out there. Videos are fantastic. As Director Huang said, every year it's like you see another one and you just go, wow. They're really great. I can't, really thrilled to see that these things are going to be going on in the theaters, the local theaters. And they're out on the YouTube. Terrific job by everybody. Thank you so much to the teachers and the parents for the support to the students. I know that's extremely valuable. And for the students, thank you so much. You're our future leaders. Look forward to seeing you. Good night. Thank you.
I'll echo much of the sentiment that was shared by my fellow directors. this really is one of the most fun meetings because we get to see a lot of the local talent here and get to highlight them in our community. And we're consistently blown away. I always look at the room anytime we have this contest and I see our future water directors and our future staff here at ACWD. So I really encourage you to stick with it. It's a very, very exciting field. You've just gotten to experience a small portion of it already. And I'm just thrilled to see what you all will accomplish. And I hope that you'll look at the district as a place, not just where you could potentially put your talents to work, but you look at us as resources as you continue your education and you continue to get into the work field. Definitely remember today, and we're just very excited to watch the ride that you guys all do. So thank you.
Welcome, everybody. The Alameda County Water District is the oldest county water district in the state of California, and we're celebrating our 108th anniversary this week of when the first board meeting was held. And we haven't had an audience here in over 2 years. And so it's really a delight to see all of you come out. I know you have homework and other more important things to do, but for the parents and teachers that support these students in their activities and our sponsors and mentors, you deserve a lot of credit as well. And so I know that each one of these award winners tonight is going to be successful in college and in whatever field or career they decide to pursue. So thank you very much for coming here.
Well, thank you all for being here. As I noted earlier, we're in the process of making the transition to come back into the face-to-face contact with people. Last year, this was done solely online, which lost some of the flavor and warmth that you have and appreciation for the people when you see them in person. So now we propose that we take a break from our meeting, have an opportunity to go visit the exhibits in the lobby and talk for a while with each of the award winners. So thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. It's 7:05 p.m. and the board is now back in session. And we had an opportunity to visit some extraordinary programs and presentations by the students from the area. So turn to our general manager for the next item. For at this time, we have the consent calendar. Is there anybody who would like to add some items to the consent calendar?
I'll make the motion to add items 5.1, 5.2, and 5.3 to the consent calendar.
I'll second. Moved and seconded. Do we have approval to for roll call, please?
Director Sethy,
Yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, aye, and Weed.
Aye. Do we have a motion to approve the consent calendar as amended?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
The roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, aye, and Weed.
Aye. I would note in the consent calendar, we had a resolution honoring Jack Hardy on his retirement from district services. He'd been with us since 1991. So thank you. We now go to the action calendar, which is item 5.4 is a public hearing regarding the board compensation and expense reimbursement policies pertaining to per day compensation and the types of activities that are deemed to be official duties performed by the directors at the request of the board, and consider adopting amendments to both policies. It's noted that the public hearing was to begin on or after 6:30 and we're only 35 minutes off. So thank you.
Okay, so
let me like to ask, well, first of all, thank the public members who might be in attendance. If is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this item? Do we have any hands raised? We have one, Mr. Nishimura. Is he?
Yes, thank you. Members of the board. Board compensation is always a tricky topic. No matter how you structure it, as the board is in full control of its own compensation, anything you do will be perceived as enriching oneself. There are some who would argue that service on the board is a form of public service, where the primary motivation is not remuneration, but service to the community. However, it is also recognized that public servants are and do need to be compensated at a reasonable rate for services relevant to the public. There seem to be two issues at hand. The first is whether the proposed rate of compensation is reasonable. It is true that the board compensation has not been adjusted since 2002. Utilizing figures from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, $281 today has an equivalent purchasing power to $175 in 2002. I will concede that given the current high inflation rate, the figure may be closer to $290, a 65% increase. As a ratepayer who is being subjected to surcharges because the district is predicting a revenue shortfall, I leave it to your judgment whether this level of increase is warranted and justified. The second issue relates to what constitutes relevant service to the public. The board has long wrestled with this topic, and agenda items to consider compensable attendance have been a mainstay of board history for years. The current proposal seeks to end this practice of micromanagement by dramatically expanding the list of pre-approved meetings. While this has the advantage of expediency, it is also open for abuse. Many of the proposed meetings have varied agendas, and directors who wish to claim compensation should be held accountable to demonstrate that attendance at that particular meeting had a reasonable nexus to a topic of interest and impact to the district. Meetings which are political in nature or cater to a particular political demographic are particularly suspect for abuse. I do support the actions taken to tighten the rules regarding expenses and what constitutes a valid expense. Lastly, there is the issue of timing. There's likely never a good time to tackle this topic. Many political agencies put their member compensations on an automatic adjustment to remove the appearance of self-enrichment. I would like the board to consider one aspect, that the board should adopt an adjustment to their compensation, that should the board adopt an adjustment to their compensation tonight, that the effective date of such adjustment be delayed until after the upcoming election. Some of you may be too old to have studied the 27th Amendment in the US Constitution in your high school civics class, as it was ratified in 1992. It reads, quote, "No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened," unquote. While the split terms of the board make it difficult to fulfill the letter of the amendment, the board can fulfill the spirit of the amendment by following suit and delaying the effective date of any board compensation adjustment until December of 2022. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other comments from members of the public? There are none in the audience, so I see no other hands raised at this time.
Right, we might want to formally open the public hearing, and then what I can do is provide a little bit of additional information, kind of a short presentation just for members of the public and everyone else who's participating to get a little bit more context. And then we can take some additional public comment as we go. But I think it'd be good to sort of formally open the public hearing. And maybe I'll just, before we do that, I'll just kind of repeat that Everybody is welcome to participate in this hearing. Since it's being conducted both in person and online, people that are participating virtually who wish to make public comments can do so by raising your hand in the Zoom app, just like Mr. Nishimura just did. You could also submit your comments or questions in the chat feature in Zoom, or you can simply speak up verbally when we open the public comment portion of the hearing. When making public comments, please be sure to unmute your own microphone or your computer microphone so that you can be heard. Our district secretary will be monitoring the chat and the raise hand functions in Zoom, and will alert the board president when a member of the public participating virtually wants to comment. We do ask that you please state your name and your service address when making a comment, but that's totally voluntary to do. So President Weed, you might at this time formally open the public hearing.
We will formally open the public hearing. I would ask, do we have any written input on this item?
No, we did not receive anything.
So we have no written comments submitted on this item. We've had one member of the public has addressed the board on the issue for the formal public hearing. If there are no other items, then we close the public hearing. And
maybe
but people can have an issue, please raise your hand. This is, there's the formality in this case need not be in the way of good governance. So we're open to as much input as we can get.
I think council has a comment.
Yeah, I think you've opened the public hearing, and I think are members of the public that appear to be online, even though there's none in the room with us. So for those who are online, I do think that staff has a presentation that should be presented so that everybody has the framework for what's before you, and then we can ask for additional public comment and then have the deliberations.
All right.
Yeah.
And at this time, we would ask anyone who wishes to address the board to note on by raising the hand function on your Zoom software.
I think what I can do before then is provide just a little extra context.
Okay, give them more.
That way, everybody's working from the same information, and then we can receive comments. So just first of all, just to provide that additional context, the board this evening is considering a proposed ordinance that amends the board's policy for compensation for board members, and a proposed resolution that amends the policy for expense reimbursement of board members. Those documents are all included in the board packet for this evening, along with the staff report for this item. Also for the public, the handout that was provided and discussed during the April 12 meeting on this topic is also included on our website in the agenda center for tonight's meeting. That handout showed the results of a survey of board member compensation of several water and wastewater agencies throughout our region. So just a little bit of information about what else is available on our website. Finally, just wanted to mention, in accordance with California Water Code Section 20203, changes to the policy for compensation for board members may only be made following a public hearing that's noticed in a newspaper of general circulation in the district once a week for 2 successive weeks, with the first publication being at least 14 days before the public hearing. The ordinance would become effective 60 days from the date it is adopted, and the district satisfied the notice requirements by publishing a notice of the public hearing in the Tri-City Voice on April 26th and May 3rd, and in the Argus on April 29 and May 6th. So at this time, what I'd like to do is do a brief overview of the policies and the various proposed changes. Much of this was presented back in April, and so I won't dwell on that, but I wanted to make sure that it's here in the event there's any discussion, any of the public has any additional questions. But I'll go ahead and get started, but only after I turn the clicker on. Okay. So just quickly recapping those 2 policy documents that I talked about. There is what we call the board compensation policy, and that defines the per day compensation that our board of directors receive for attending board meetings and doing other activities that are considered service rendered at the request of the board. That defines the maximum number of compensable days per month. Right now it's 10, and it includes a detailed list of all these activities that are considered service rendered at the request of the board. And as I mentioned, amending that policy requires a noticed public hearing, and that's what we're engaged in this evening. Okay, the expense reimbursement policy, this provides for reimbursement of director expenses that are related to providing those services that are rendered at the request of the board. And it describes what expenses can be reimbursed and how they're reimbursed and provides some limits. And it also contains that same list of various activities of meetings and other activities that are considered service rendered at the request of the board. Okay, so back in November, the board formed an advisory committee to take a look at both of those policies. The committee members were Directors Weed and Gunther. The committee met a few times and discussed both of those policies and discussed proposed changes that should be recommended to the full board. And staff participated in those discussions. And then in what came out of those discussions were a few things. And in terms of recommendations from the advisory committee, the advisory committee recommended that the board consider an increase to that per day compensation based upon 3% per year since it was last modified in 2002. And so I framed here on the slide a little bit of information about what that might look like. If the 3% were calculated on a simple escalation basis, that would be about $280 per day. If it were compounded over that period, it'd be up to $316 a day. A little bit of information here about what's in that board member compensation survey that I mentioned. There was a low of $100, a high of $331, an average of $280, and a median of $206. In addition, advisory committee recommendations for the compensation policy was to revise that list of activities considered service at the request of the board and specify that compensation for days of travel would only be provided if those travel days are reasonably necessary connected with that meeting or activity that that would be compensated, and then specify that there wouldn't be compensation for travel any more than one day before or one day after a meeting that was attended. And then in terms of that expense reimbursement policy, again, to modify that list of meetings considered service at the request of the board, put some limits on the reimbursements and the rates for travel expenses, provide a little bit more detail for some of the allowable expenses in there, taxi, rideshare, and shuttle and so forth. And then again, specify additional restrictions related to travel days and providing reimbursements for days of travel before and after meetings or activities. Okay, and then with regard to the expense reimbursement policy, some other proposed changes include making some changes to how expense reports are filed, providing a little bit more detail around that, and then also providing an option for directors to submit written reports when they report on those meetings or activities attended, written reports that would be included in the board packet in lieu of extensive reports and discussion at the board meeting that's required following the activity. Okay, and then in terms of that list of meetings and activities considered service rendered at the request of the board, the committee suggested maybe consolidating the two lists or the lists that are attached to each one of those policies into one list, and then have that one list be maintained and then used as an attachment to each of the policies. So in fact, it has the same effect, but it's a little bit less administration in terms of keeping that list up to date. Also, clarifying in this day and age of virtual meetings, clarifying that attending a meeting virtually or by teleconference counts as attendance. And then providing a little bit more specificity around what's allowable in terms of the board president or vice president designating another director to attend a meeting in their stead in the policy. And then in terms of changes to the list itself, there were some activities and meetings, organizations that would hold meetings that were proposed to be added to section 3 of the list. Section 3 is kind of more of a general section that has to do with activities that directors may attend that could be compensable. And you can see the list here that was proposed to be added. And then in section 4, again, proposed changes to the section 4 list. Section 4 is a little bit more constrained. It would allow for board member attendance only for those meetings and activities that are, quote, on topics related to the water industry, water policy, or other issues that could impact the district. And you can see the list that was proposed to be added here. And then at the April 12 board meeting, the committee and staff described all of those changes in a little bit more detail than I'm describing here, just kind of doing a review. And then the board deliberated on those proposed changes. And from that discussion, the direction from the board was to take another look at attachment A. That's the list of meetings and activities considered service rendered at the request of the board, and consider other organizations that perhaps ought to be moved from section 3 to section 4 to provide a little bit more restriction over what types of meetings and activities would qualify for compensation and reimbursement. And then also to set today, May 12 at 6:30 p.m. as the date and time for a public hearing. That's what we're doing this evening, to consider changes to the policy for compensation for board members, and to specify in the legal notice that was published in the newspaper that that per day compensation amount not exceed $300, and indicate that the board proposes also to modify the list of meetings and activities that are considered service rendered at the request of the board. And so again, the $300 is the maximum that the board could choose to change that per day compensation amount to. Okay, and then so following that April 12 board meeting, some additional review of attachment A was done. There was coordination between staff and the advisory committee. And from that, the 3 organizations that are listed here were moved from section 3 to section 4. That's the Alameda Creek Alliance, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, and the Tuolumne River Trust. And then removed from the list entirely was the Special District Risk Management Authority, SDRMA, as the district's no longer a member. And then again, the documents that I mentioned are attached to the staff report. They're in the board packet. There are clean and redlined versions of each policy, and also that list that I talked about. Also, again, that survey that on board compensation is available in the agenda center for this meeting. So staff's recommendation for this evening is to conduct a public hearing to receive and hear comments on the proposed revisions to the policies, including the policy for compensation for board members. And of course, that's what we're doing right now. And then consider the adoption of an ordinance amending the policy for compensation for board members, and consider the adoption of a resolution amending the policy for expense reimbursement of board members. And those 2 items, 2 and 3, can be taken individually or together, however the board would like to proceed. But at this time, President Weed, I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, thank you. One additional point of information that strikes me is that the state law allows a 5% per year compounded once you establish a base, and then going forward, that would be the limit. The board, in our discussions, suggestion of Director Gunther suggested 3% would be one that he was more comfortable with, and that is why we're using the 3% now. Which is a step down significantly. It would be much higher again if we were to have used the 5% compounded.
Allows 5% simple interest rate.
Well, I thought it was 5%. We could, well,
No, it's in the
Okay,
It's
5%
right in our,
simple.
it's right in
All
our
right.
package right here.
Okay, and thank you for the clarification. One can do it annually at 5%, which would be a compounded. We have not done that. There's some districts which each first meeting of the year make an automatic adjustment to the maximum. We're not proposing that at all. So again, let me open it up then for board discussion. Is there someone who wishes to address the presentation or have any questions about the presentation?
Director Weed, I guess I could start. I mean, I was on the committee with you, and I'd like to identify why this really was driven by, for me personally, was when we had to vote on the compensation for Director Sethy to be on the JPA for the financing authority. I mean, I was looking at that going, really? Our policy doesn't cover that. And it was like, okay, we need to do this. There's never a good time, but that drove it. And then one thing kind of compounded on another, and the list is long. I agree. And yes, there's room for potential abuse, but there are checks. There's requirements that we still report back. You have to report back on the meetings you go to. I don't envision any problems with any sitting member of this board with meetings. I have seen other elected officials and other boards where, or other, yeah, I guess you can call them boards, groups, where abuse has come. I mean, that's possible. It's always possible. But my goal was to say, look, okay, and I think we fairly followed this, which was, what have we done in the past? What have we approved? And the list fairly follows that fairly closely, if I'm not mistaken. I mean, we'd be constantly approving things, and it, even though it's big, it follows primarily along the lines what we have approved in the past. It's simpler, it's easier to understand. And I'm okay with it being broader. I firmly believe that we should be at these meetings, at these tables. I'm thankful that Director Sethy has stood up and taken that role. I personally don't have the time because of my job. But then the compensation issue came through, and I started looking at that, and I'm looking at it going, that doesn't really cover for what he's doing on that board. Not even close, actually. The prep time, the impact of that group, the project, the Delta Conveyance Financing Authority, and the efforts and the reports he brings back, it just doesn't meet that.
And Los Vaqueros Reservoir, JPA as well.
Well, yeah, I left a few out. Yeah, Los Vaqueros Reservoir, JPA, and it's vital that we be at these. And now some meetings, yeah, okay, fine. You know, an increase in compensation, I'd say we don't really need it. We go past midnight. When we go past midnight, those are long meetings, difficult to deal with. But really, it was those meetings that were driving. And there's really no way to scale a meeting. So I have my ideas. I'll maintain those numbers here. But you know, the other thing that when I started this too, on the committee in particular, was 20 years. We haven't addressed this in 20. It feels like we address it every year because, as Mr. Nishimara says, that you know this is unpleasant. Yeah, it looks like you're helping yourself, but really it's been 20 years. And in the past 20 years, we have really pushed ourselves out. And I think rightfully so. The situation today is much different than it was 20 years ago. And it's not getting any better. As a matter of fact, I suspect it's gonna get worse. So that's where I came from with this. I haven't put any numbers out yet. I have some ideas. I'm gonna hold off on those. But I wanted to express some of the things that we did with the committee. I don't know if Director Weed concurs, or General Manager, but that was my goal on that committee. Take those meetings, bring them together, We've already identified them. We've already authorized them. I think there might be a couple more thrown in there. Yes, there's some room, potential, but there are checks. We have to report back. And I don't think that's ever really been much of a problem with report back. So that was my opinion.
All right, thank you. Do we have other comments?
But I also do believe that it's time for an increase. I know that's unpleasant. I haven't supported them in the past, but I will support that this evening, and I haven't thrown any number out there yet.
All right, thank you.
I actually have a process question for council. I know we are still within the public hearing period. Do we need to close it first before we have the board discussion?
There's no legal requirement to close it. You certainly could accept public comment and close the public hearing and then have the deliberation, which is what you've done in the past. But it's also okay to have this deliberation. But as long as the public hearing is open, we do need to invite the public to comment again, and then we would close the public hearing.
So I would reserve my comment until after the public comment period. I know most likely we'll not get that many members of the public, but I would wish to hear our customers' point of view first.
I have the ability to reopen the public hearing if someone wants to make a comment, do I not?
The public hearing is open right now. You have not yet asked for the public to comment. Mr. Nishimura commented before the public hearing was open. So any member of the public still has the ability, and you should provide them with the opportunity to comment now. And we should also confirm that whether there's been any written comments that have been submitted in advance of the public.
I think we were told there was no written comment.
Okay, perfect.
And therefore, and on the other, I was trying to keep this as open as possible for public input if they wish to. But if it's the pleasure of the board, I will close the public hearing.
Not yet.
No.
Please invite the public to comment.
Okay, then we will continue to invite the public to comment. If there's any member of the public who wishes to address the board on this issue, or they can wait for our discussion and then let them add their comments at the end, which might be more productive. So at least could respond to what our ideas are. But
Director Huang's suggestion is the opposite, that we get public comment first before we enter into.
well, what is your pleasure now?
I think the purpose of having a public comment period is for us to hear comments from our public and put that as part of our deliberative process.
Right.
I
Okay,
would
well,
recommend we hear from the public first, if there are any, and then we close the public comment period, then have our discussion, please.
I favor that process too.
All right, fine. Well, then let me proceed, go back to the public. We will now have an open comment period. Before I close the public comments, is there anyone who wishes to address the board on this issue?
And what you can do is unmute yourself and begin speaking. I think that might just be the ease, but feel free to raise your hand or put anything you'd like to in the chat and we'll address it there too.
Okay, this time I see.
President Weed, this is Mr. Nishimura. Just as a matter of process, I assume that my premature public comment in response to your invitation will be moved as a matter of record to public comments as part of the public hearing. And
Yes.
that I need not belabor the board with a repetitive presentation.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
tried to get that out as early as I could, and I'm open to if someone does have something that they need to advise us of, please let us know. We're not trying to close anybody out on this discussion. So at this time, then I will close the public comment period and return to the board for comment. Director.
Okay, I guess I should start. Based on our discussion last month, I can count. There's definitely more than 3, so I'm definitely in the minority. So I think instead of furthering the debate, I just have a couple statements. I think the reason to have a policy is to ensure that we spend our customers' money wisely. It should not depend on policy plus good intentions of the directors. A policy should be administered the way it's intended. I have no problem with all the recommended changes in terms of policy and the resolution. What I have problem with is the pay increase and the list of meetings. This is just not a good time to increase our pay. I understand there's never a good time, but there is a terrible time to do this, considering we just increased people's water rate, including their fixed charges, and then we just implemented the stage rate. This is not only not a good time, this is a bad time to do this. It's totally tone deaf. We are telling people, please conserve, but we still need to charge you more for your water bill. But hey, we're giving us a more than $100 increase per meeting. There's just something wrong about that in terms of our responsibility to our customers. In terms of list of meetings in the attachment A, I'll say thank you to staff for moving some of the meetings, but there are still some meetings in section 3 that really needs to be moved to section 4. I just did a really quick Google on a couple of the agencies, like CalPERS. I looked up their board meeting agenda. So CalPERS is under section 3, so all the meetings supposed to be covered. So on April 18th, they have a CalPERS Board of Administration's meeting. It's totally about Tustin Unified School District. Now my question is, why should our customer pay for one other director to sit there to listen to discussion about Tustin Unified School District? What is the nexus to our customer? What is the nexus to ACWD? We should only be compensated for going to meetings that helps out our decision process and benefit our customers. State Water Board is also on the list of approved meetings. I looked up their agenda on May 10th. Guess what? The agenda items are mainly on the Santa Ana River Basin Plan Amendment and the Russian River Update. What is the direct benefit and nexus to our customers? What type of benefit can our customer get? What ancillary information can we as directors not receive just through a report or email from our staff? Why do we need to be paid? Why should our customers spend that money to pay us to sit there to attend a meeting that doesn't benefit them? So that's my problem with the list in attachment A. I would actually be very happy, since we're talking about judgment and good intentions, if you move all the meetings to section 4, specify that there has to be a nexus to the water district and benefit to staff. I actually have no problem with these issues, with these entities. It's just the fact that it is so broad-based and there are definitely meetings that does not benefit our customers. That's bothering me. So I will be voting no on this item.
Thank you. And Director Akbari, did you have a comment?
So I think we hashed out some of the philosophical differences that some of us have in the last meeting. So I'm not going to go down that route again. It was brought up a few times, that there's never necessarily a good time to talk about compensation. I respectfully would disagree that this is the worst time to bring it up. I think especially as we're coming up on an election cycle, I actually prefer doing this right before an election, because that allows the public to provide direct input through their vote on how they feel our performance was and whether they think we were worth the money, to quite literally. The other benefit I actually see in doing it now prior to an election is we want to encourage people to run for the board, and I think making sure that anybody who wishes to participate in our activities has the opportunity to do so. I would hate to see compensation as being a mitigating factor for someone who would otherwise like to participate. And given the state of the economy right now, given the compensation that we're offered right now, I do think that it does put some folks at a disadvantage where they might not be able to legitimately afford to participate as a board member. So I think, especially when we consider that it's been 20 years since we've had an increase in compensation, if you tie this to what the value of the dollar was 20 years ago to what we're proposing today, it's not like we're necessarily giving ourselves that much of a raise, because it kind of matches with what the inflation adjusted value of that dollar is. So I stated this last time, I'm supportive of the committee's feedback. I think they put a lot of time and effort into this, and so very much appreciative of Director Gunther and President Weed on this. I'll be voting for it, but do recognize that there's some philosophical differences amongst the board. Thank you.
You forgot to mention one thing. Sure. You're not up for re-election this November.
Fair enough. I'm not up for.
It's my butt that's on the line at Judy's. So, listen, I don't want to get into a long, drawn out argument here. I think we understand we're philosophically different. I look at this from a couple different perspectives. One, we are responsible for an enterprise district that has water revenues of close to 125 million, a budget of 175 million. And we've got $200 million, if you look at our board package here, that we're managing in terms of investments and securities. That's quite a responsibility. We're approaching the size of Fremont in terms of these numbers. And no one should sneeze at the opportunity that it's not just attendance at the meetings, it is all the prep time that goes into our meetings that the public really doesn't see. And I always say you get what you pay for. You've heard me say that before on different subjects. But I truly believe that we are not here just deciding our compensation right now, but we are deciding on compensation and the process for attendance at appropriate meetings for future boards that we will not be part of. And as I said last month, if past is prologue, the board compensation is not going to be changed for quite some time. On the previous occasion that it was prior to 2002, the last increase in board compensation was 1980. So if I am looking at the numbers here and Santa Clara Valley just increased their compensation to $440 a meeting, that's not registered here, that when I attend Valley Water meetings or similar meetings of other large agencies, I think that we have a similar responsibility here. And if you're going to attract people that are willing to serve with some good professional background on this board, I think that people naturally make a trade-off between their current occupation, what they're doing with their families, the time it takes to serve, and do a good, diligent job and perform at the best you can for the public. There's also the consideration of the fact that, as we all know, it takes quite a bit of money to run for the board, and you hardly make up the cost of actually having run a campaign. So I would encourage us, based on the data that was put forward, to first adopt all of the items under the meetings that are acceptable for attendance. And then looking at the compensation data, put ourselves at 300 even. That is where we would be in 2 years anyway, with the 5% per year that's allowed by law, or at 3% per year, that's where we would be in 3 years anyway as well. And I think it's justifiable because of the lack of having addressed this issue in the past, that in a way you're making up just a little bit of lost compensation that might have been there had we addressed it on an earlier occasion. So I would strongly move for us to adopt $300 per diem compensation for the meetings that we attend. Thank you.
Thank you. I would support that motion. If we have a third vote, we'll, it might work. It's been noted that we are an enterprise district running a major business. If you were in the private sector, and that information is again not immediately before us, but San Jose Water, investor-owned utility, is $1,500 per meeting for their directors. That is the outside market rate. We're not anywhere near that. We're limited to a maximum of $300 based on the notice we gave. In my 26 plus years on this board, I've never heard of any challenge to the ethics or the integrity of the board members in requesting compensation for their activities and how they spent the money or what they did. There's a culture of responsibility that has been universal. And to go that long without any challenge is remarkable. We had a difficulty on spending a lot of staff time as general manager trying to, under the older, poorly drafted compensation, which was wide open, what would be compensated and what not. We've done a great effort to try and document the meetings that we feel are appropriate and a methodology if there's something that comes new to the district. But the time we spend as individuals or as a group attending these meetings, both in the meeting itself and then the conversations with others in the water industry, are incredibly informative. We only come into this office a few times a month at best. And many of those years from recent couple of years has been on video. So the quality of those decisions, Director Sethy and I serve on the Delta Conveyance Authority boards. $16 billion, which our share may only be 1.15%, but it's hundreds of millions of dollars. The quality of those decisions and knowledge are important to us. So let me then return it to the other board members to see if there's any support for a $300 amount, or do they request something else?
I guess I'll speak again, if other board members don't mind. In that, yes, I agree with Director Huang, the timing is not good. We're in the middle of a surcharge because of the drought. The problem is, it's not going to, it may not be any good next year either. I hope it's better, because that would mean that, it's raining. But there's no, that's hope. And so I've concluded we just have to do it. And it's been 20 years, it's due. As far as the list, yes, there are opportunities for abuse on the list of those meetings you've mentioned. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope it doesn't. It hasn't, as far as I could tell to date. So I'm okay with the list as it's written. It's a big list. We certainly could tweak it if we have to. There's nothing stopping us from moving something on or off the list. We already removed Sid Ram because we're no longer a member. So I think that list I'm still okay with the list. Could it be, maybe some of them could be moved to 4. I'm okay with what we got there tonight. As far as compensation dollars, I didn't say anything before, but I would be more inclined for the 280, the simple escalation number. That's where I would start. Versus 300, I see where you're coming with that. I was the one who requested the 3% number. And interesting, it also worked out to be the average, although the average is not the median. But that said, I'm okay with that. The 280, that's where my number is for the moment. Thank you.
And I'll just add in similar to Director Weed, that was, or sorry, Director Gunther, that 280 was the figure that I was prepared to vote in favor of for roughly the same rationale that he provided.
We can't vote on a split vote, so
No, we can't.
is there a happy compromise in the middle, like at 290?
I'm not opposed to a compromise, no. At 290.
Okay, at least that would
I think-
provide us with a more harmonious
I
board.
could live with it. I know Director Huang is just gonna say no anyway, which is fine, you know, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's why we're here. And to express our opinions, hopefully in relationship to how some of the public feels.
All right, then I will make a motion for us to support a per diem compensation of $290. And then we can vote on that as one resolution and then take up the other portion separately.
So I would recommend there's two documents before you for action. One is adoption of the ordinance, which deals with compensation, and this 200 the per day compensation would be that action. And the other one is the resolution, which is expense reimbursement. Both of those actions include the list. Only the ordinance includes compensation. So if you would like, I would recommend that you make the motion to adopt the ordinance amending the policy for compensation with the amount of the per day compensation at $290.
I'll go with what you just said.
And I'll second that.
All right. Thank you. So we have a motion from Director Sethy, second from Director Akbari. I would note that the 300 itself was a compromise between 330 and 280. So we're at 290. Do we need is the motion as articulated by our attorney, district council appropriate to call for a vote?
Yes.
Yes, roll call, please.
Can I
Oh,
ask?
is there a comment first? or
No,
question?
I was going to ask the council to repeat that again for me, please, just for the record.
Oh, sure. So it is a motion to approve the ordinance amending the policy for compensation for board members that's included in the agenda packet with the blank for the per day compensation being filled in with $290 per day.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're in agreement with that. That is your motion, Director Sethy,
Yes.
and that is your second, Director
Correct.
Akbari.
Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, no, and Weed.
Aye. Thank you.
I would quickly like to point out something in response to Director Wong's concerns. They're legitimate concerns about attending meetings where you are not bringing value back to our district and board and staff. Some of the ones that you mentioned, like attendance at the school board meetings, I recall as board president, I was attending those meetings with our general manager to help guide them through the drought. And it was at the request of the board that I was attending the school board meeting. Or in the case of the Department of Water Resources for State Water Control Board, I have at times attended one of those meetings. I probably attended no more than 3 or 4 in all these years. But I am on the Aqua Water Management Committee, where we have a responsibility to plug in to some of those meetings. And California Water Commission. I think that President Weed and I have used good judgment in the past that we only attend the meetings that have a direct bearing on our district.
So time out. Council, is it appropriate now that we voted for the item to reopen this discussion?
No, I'm talking about meetings.
It is appropriate because there's still one more action.
Okay, this is for the
Which is
second
the
action.
resolution
Okay.
for the expense reimbursement, which includes the list that
Thank you.
Director Sethy is referring to.
Yeah, and city councils go along with that, where we have had to give city council presentations, community presentations, especially if they're drought related.
All right,
So
thank you.
I think my response is that I think I was clear in the record saying that I'm actually not opposing to move those meetings to section 4 as long as there's a nexus to the water district. In terms of the CalPERS meeting that I identify, it's actually not a school board meeting. It's a meeting held by CalPERS to talk about liabilities of the school district. So there's definitely, I will definitely say there are reasons to attend some of the CalPERS meeting. There are reasons to attend some of the state water board meeting. But what bothers me is the wholesale approval to attend all of their meetings in section 3. I will reiterate, I would not have any problem if you move all the meetings from section 3 to section 4. As long as there's a nexus to our customers, as long as attending the meeting will benefit our customers, I have absolutely no problem and really would appreciate our directors represent our customers. It is the blanket nature of some of these meetings that bothers me.
Well, okay, any other comments on that? I note that we have, as part of a collective bargaining, a major issue with CalPERS, a major investment in the CalPERS investment funds, and labor is one of our highest expenses. And much of that labor cost is the benefits, which are managed by CalPERS, including retirement. But so let us, do we have any other comments related to the second portion of this section resolution? If there are none, do we have a motion to approve the second portion of the staff recommendation?
I will make that motion for adoption of an ordinance amending the policy for reimbursement or consideration of the adoption of a resolution amending the policy for expense reimbursement of board members. Is that proper, Mr. Miyake?
Correct. It's the resolution
Right.
that we're referring to now.
Do we have a second for that item?
I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion? Being none, roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, no, and Weed.
Aye.
I truly have no sympathy, or I have all the sympathy in the world for whatever future board has to go through this down the road.
It's amazing how some of the lower dollar amounts can take the greatest amount of energy. All right, thank you. So we then move on to the next, which is item 5.5, resolution authorizing the general manager to approve the findings of the annual water supply and demand assessment for submittal to the California Department of Water Resources.
Thank you, President Weed. In this item, I will ask our Director of Water Resources, Ms. Laura Heides, to introduce.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stevenson. And I think we do have a presentation on this item. So 5.5 tonight, resolution authorizing the general manager to approve findings of the annual water supply and demand assessment for submittal to the California Department of Water Resources is an item that is going to review this new report that we're going to be doing to submit to the state each year. And tonight we have Mr. Devin Becker, Water Resources Engineer, here to give the presentation on this item. And Mr. Thomas Nizer, our Water Supply and Planning Manager, has also tuned in online as well in support of this item. So I will go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Becker because I know he's got the full range of information to cover tonight. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Ms. Heides, and good evening, everyone. So yes, I don't repeat the title of this since we just heard it. I'm just going to move on right into the presentation. So the annual water supply and demand assessment, or WSDA, is a new reporting requirement stemming from the 2018 water use efficiency legislation from the state of California. And the methodology of the WSDA is to assess drought risk. It's also known as a stress test. And the WSDA evaluates risk of drought if the next year is dry. And what we really mean by risk of drought is if water supplies will be able to meet demands. The WSDA communicates that risk to the public, including drought actions. And the WSDA procedures have been codified in our most recent water shortage contingency plan. So the one that was developed for the 2020 UWMP process. And so just want to make a note to the board that the WSDA procedures align with those documents. They've been approved and adopted by the board and have also been approved by DWR. The WSDA is really a hypothetical test if the subsequent year is a dry year, and it's intended to be used as an early warning. The WSDA is due by July 1st, beginning in 2022. So it's this July 1st. And I'll also just note that the recent governor's executive order actually focused on the WSDA, that they're in sort of expediting the due date for this. So it was mentioned in that executive order, it was a request to the State Water Resources Control Board to adopt emergency regulations to move that forward, that deadline, by 1 month to June 1st. And so that's still in draft at the state board, but we expect that to be enacted. And so, or become a regulation. And so we will likely be submitting a preliminary WSDA June 1st. The WSDA uses a DWR developed spreadsheet tool that evaluates water supplies and demands on a monthly time step and includes delivery and facility constraints. ACWD's WSDA methodology uses procedures outlined in the current water shortage contingency plan, like I mentioned. It relies on existing annual practices used for water supply planning. It assumes a subsequent year has water supplies corresponding to those listed as the single critical dry year in our most recent urban water management plan, which happens to be 1977. And staff will review findings with ACWD's board via the Water Resources and Conservation Committee. And I'll just note that was presented to that committee in the April 26th meeting. And then the board or board authorized designee will approve the findings of the WSDA, and staff will submit the findings to DWR by the appropriate deadline. In terms of 2022 WSDA findings, ACWD's WSDA determined that if fiscal year 22-23 were to experience the same water supply conditions of the 1977 calendar year, ACWD would experience a water supply shortfall of approximately 15% and likely need to declare a stage 2 water shortage emergency and enact associated measures outlined in the water shortage contingency plan. And I'll just make a note here. Like I said, this is really a hypothetical next subsequent dry year stress test. So the fact that we're looking at a 15% water supply shortfall from using the UWMP's single critical dry year is really sort of a coincidence with the fact that we are actually already in a stage 2 declaration and that we've already adopted a 15% conservation ordinance. So in other years, in future years, we would not necessarily expect these to align. So I just want to make that point to the board. In terms of next steps, staff will receive approval of the water supply and demand assessed findings from the board of directors or its authorized designee, and staff will then submit findings to DWR. And I want to make one other point here before I move on to the recommendation. Given the current drought conditions, this WSDA has gotten a little bit more scrutiny from the state right now. And as I mentioned before, the governor's executive order mentioned the WSDA and pushed that deadline forward 1 month. It's likely to happen. Something else in that executive order was the request to the state board, again, to adopt regulations to have every agency in the state put forward the drought actions associated with the level 2 shortage from their drought or from their water shortage contingency plan, regardless of actually being in that declared stage of shortage. So just want to highlight for the board, there are some slight changes and adjustments and additional scrutiny around the WSDA. So staff will be monitoring that in the coming months and make sure that our agency is going to comply with any adjustments. So I just want to make that clear to the board. And here before us is a recommendation. So it's to, by motion, adopt a resolution authorizing and delegating authority for the general manager to approve findings of each water supply and demand assessment for submittal to the California Department of Water Resources. And that concludes my presentation this evening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the board? Comments?
Excellent.
Thank you. So at this point, do we have then a motion to?
Can we just open it?
Please, you have a question?
Questions from the public?
Do we have any member of the public that wishes to address us on this item? I see no member of the public raising their hands. So then let us return to the board and see if there's anyone at the board who wishes to make a motion to support, put it on the table.
I'll make the motion to adopt staff recommendation.
I'll second.
Do we have any further comment by members of the board? No, this is a matter of great fluctuation based particularly on water supply and the rains. So it'll be an annual experience, and next year could be an extraordinary challenge. So thank you very much for your efforts.
Thank you.
We have a motion, roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Aye.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, aye, and Weed.
Aye. Thank you.
Great job, and thank you.
That completes our regular calendar. Now we go to the reports. Is there any comment by the staff on any of the board committee reports? And does the board have any comment about the board committee reports?
Yeah, staff doesn't have any additional comments to make, but we'd be happy to address any questions the board may have on any of the reports.
I don't have any. Okay, there being none, we'll move to the operational reports. Is there, first of all, any input by staff on the operational reports?
Nope, but ready for questions.
Members of this board have questions about the operational reports?
I see we have a hand raised from the public.
Okay, we have one member of the public. Please identify yourself and speak.
Yes, this is Mr. Nishimura. Thank you, President Weed. Yes, I'd like to make comments on two of the operational reports, the distribution system monthly hardness map, which I typically do at each meeting. So with regards to water hardness, I do note that the hardness levels in the northern portion of the district are inching upwards. I assume that this is due to the increase in hardness of SFPUC water used to blend with the groundwater. Any efforts that can be made to contain the increase in the hardness in the northern district of the northern portion of the district would be appreciated. My second comment has to do with 6.2.5, the water production report. With respect to the water production report, I note that the district is producing considerably more water, and I assume selling considerably more water than expected. Using the graph provided in the second to the last page of the board packet, and also the graph presented at the April 26, 2022 Water Resources and Conservation Committee, the district is producing and selling approximately 6.5 million gallons per day, or about 8,700 units, in excess of predictions. This results in a revenue in excess of expectations of approximately $48,000 per day, or a bit more than $1.4 million a month. The district passed a drought surcharge and justified the increase on a predicted revenue shortfall should the volume of water sold decrease in response to the drought. However, it does not appear that such decrease is occurring. While this in it of itself is a cause for concern, it does result in the district collecting revenues in excess of what the district had outlined as the cost of service in their most recent rate analysis. If this trend of above expectation water sales continues, the district will collect millions of dollars in excess revenue. The ratepayers should be subjected to a surcharge for revenues, resulting in the ratepayers being subjected to a surcharge for a revenue shortfall which has not materialized. I urge the board to keep a close eye on this and make adjustments as appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any comments? I would note that I did not support surcharges because we have the extraordinary difficulty of trying to guess what our sales are going to be because we don't have a 100% volumetric charge. Our commodity charge, our variable costs do not match our variable income, and our fixed costs do not match our fixed income. And when you have that, you're always in a guessing mode. And it's unfortunate. And the disparities that you've just noted, Mr. Nishwara, are a result of what I have called an unfortunate rate structure. But I believe the board has heard those arguments in the past. Thank you. So if there's no other comment on the operational reports, let us go to, there are no staff presentations on the agenda. We have the general manager's report.
Thank you, President. We do have a few general managers reports, and I think we can keep them relatively brief. First of all, I'll just start out with a quick update on the COVID-19 pandemic. As you could see this evening, pardon me, a lot more masks going on here at the district. Obviously the case rate in the community has risen quite a bit. ACWD is not immune to that increase. And in fact, we've had a number of new cases over the last few weeks and the last few days, such that I think we've had 8 new cases since the last board meeting. So that's a pretty significant increase from what we've been seeing in the past. That is resulting in some folks having to quarantine and isolate. As it stands right now, not having significant operational issues, but we do have a few people in our distribution maintenance group who are having to isolate. And so we're keeping an eye on that very carefully. And in fact, if we continue to have increases in case counts here, we may need to implement additional protocols here in terms of masking indoors and masking outdoors when certain distancing can't be maintained. So we're keeping an eye on this. Beyond that, vaccination rates remain relatively high here, but like the rest of the community, we're seeing those case rates go up. Before I move on, I'd be happy to address any questions or concerns.
Any questions? No. Being none, please move on.
Okay, so our next quick update is on the drought. It's the other lingering issue that's always hanging over our head, and Ms. Heides can provide an update there.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. Just a short verbal update tonight. Severe or extreme drought conditions continue to exist throughout the state. Statewide, it's been the driest January through April on record since 1895, according to National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration records. Locally here, January through April 2022 was the second driest on record for this period, with the driest here being in 2013. The cumulative water year to date local precipitation remains at 13.6 inches, the 5th driest year on record, with no measurable precipitation thus far in May, despite the exciting mini hailstorm I think some of us experienced. There are no significant changes to the district's imported water supplies at this time, and no major updates to report on the 2 dry year transfer opportunities the district is pursuing. We continue to plan around a 5% state water project allocation, and San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, or SFPUC, supplies are currently subject to a 10% voluntary cutback target. The district continues to have an elevated need for San Francisco supply to meet our blending needs due to low levels of PFAS in well water. So staff anticipates being over the voluntary target and has been in regular communication with San Francisco PUC about this need. The State Water Resources Control Board will consider adopting emergency regulations on May 24th, And staff anticipates that SFPUC will take action around that time to move their voluntary reduction targets into level 2 under their water shortage contingency plan, consistent with what we're seeing in the executive order requests, which has the potential to further increase water use reduction targets for wholesale customers. Staff is closely following both the state board and SFPUC processes and will be able to provide an update in June on any new developments. Customer water demands fell somewhat during mid-April due to some precipitation and cooler weather, which was encouraging, although not quite to our targeted reduction goals. We have trended higher and are above our target for this time of year since that time. This trend that we're seeing is consistent with what we're hearing is being seen throughout the region and the state. The district continues to encourage customers to take additional steps to reduce water use, in particular actions to further reduce outdoor irrigation demands. Outdoor watering is currently limited to only 1 day per week during May. Staff continues to participate in a number of community events, webinars, and other outreach efforts to get the word out, and is sending letters to homeowners associations and multifamily residential complexes, as well as emails to dedicated landscape customers via the Waterfluence online water budget program. The district's water use efficiency and public affairs teams are in close coordination to develop additional plans for increased drought outreach efforts this summer to get our customers to turn up the dial on water savings so we can meet our conservation target, which will be critical as we enter the summertime months. Staff will be coming to the board in June with a more detailed drought update, including the outcome of the State Water Board emergency regulations process and additional outreach plans. I'm happy to answer any quick questions.
Thank you. Do we have any comments or questions from the board? Are there any comments or questions from the public? There being none, thank you very much for your staff report.
Do you have a couple of additional general managers reports?
Please.
First of all, it's just an update on the district's efforts to secure an SRF loan for our advanced metering infrastructure project. And so to fill us in on the latest is our Director of Finance, John Wonderlich.
Yeah, and unfortunately, no good news on this topic tonight. So district staff had estimated a certain cost from the prevailing wage decision made by the federal government. The amount of the change order submitted by the contractor was far in excess of staff's estimate. And given pending Build America, Buy America requirements in the program, we didn't have time to negotiate a more reasonable amount with the contractor. And so given the uncertainty that resulted, we did elect earlier this week to formally withdraw our application for an SRF loan. The good news is we did include $10 million of new money in the bond issuance from last month, and that kind of provides a buffer against the fact that this loan did not proceed. Staff is furiously working to finalize our budget workshop presentation that will reflect these updates and a potential approach for our long-term financial planning in reflection of this loan not advancing. And so that presentation will go out as part of the agenda packet tomorrow.
Well, thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. Sorry. So can you just kind of comment a little bit on how much our estimate was off from what we received from the contractor and kind of some of the factors behind that, whether it's inflation or something else that led to the major discrepancy?
Yeah, so our estimate was about $2 million. And we felt that anywhere, because of how low the interest rate is in the SRF loan, we felt that anything up to about 3 or 4 million would have been worth still advancing the loan. The change order from the contractor was for 18 million.
Wow.
And so based on our initial review, I think that they included requests in that change order that went well beyond just that prevailing wage requirement. Potentially paying those types of wages on this project with ACWD may have created other issues within their company and the wages paid in other projects that maybe they were looking for funding from us to cover, since they felt that that project was creating the issues. And well, if we had a couple of months to negotiate it down, we might have gotten to something manageable. We had, about 1 day or 2 days. before we had to make a formal decision on the SRF loan. And there's just, we felt way too much uncertainty there, especially because once we signed the loan, we were committed and we would no longer have any leverage to negotiate that down.
Thank you.
Question? Do we have, might we consider doing this in-house with limited term employees and doing it within the assets of ACWD as opposed to a contractor?
Well, we're already under contract to get the work done. The work will be done. The issue was whether or not we could finance a big part of the overall project cost with the SRF loan. So as it stands now, we're just continuing to move forward with the arrangements that had been in place before.
Yeah.
See if I understand then what the request for a contractual change amendment, has that gone forward and we signed off on the higher amount?
No.
No.
So
what this was about was one of the conditions for accepting the SRF loan would have been that we would have to increase our labor rate for certain costs associated with the contract. It had gone through a review at the federal government side, and based upon the federal government's assessment, they would want a different pay scale for that work. And so that would have resulted, if we were to accept that SRF loan, we would have had to make that change with the contractor. That would have been the change order, but we did not issue that change order.
okay, so the contractor is still under contract at the originally agreed upon price.
Correct.
The lower dollar amounts to perform the work.
Correct.
That's right.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Okay. Any other questions on that brief item? Also, just a couple of quick reminders. The Alameda County Homeowners Fair is on Wednesday, May 25th. Sorry, the event begins around 5 p.m. It'll be both virtual and in person at the City of Fremont Downtown Event Center. ACWD will be there. We'll have development services staff participating in a panel related to accessory dwelling units. And we'll also have our water use efficiency staff there at a table, meeting with everyone and sharing tips, reminders, advice about water conservation and our rebate programs and so forth. So if you're there, feel free to stop by. Also, you may already know the City of Newark has their Civic Center grand opening coming up on May 14. That's this Saturday from 11 to 3, and that's downtown at their site of their previous, the admin building downtown. So that's just a couple of quick updates, and beyond that, I think that completes our general manager's reports.
Thank you. And next move then to the director's comments and reports on meetings attended and agenda item request. So I am the first, which is a Water Now Alliance conference, which Water Now performs their meetings at university campuses, in this case, the University of Pennsylvania. I attended for the 2 days. The Water Now is primarily associated with the League of Cities, National League of Cities, but did have strong representation from California, which is their base. They have a number of NGOs that attend this conference. And it was interesting to see the presentations on water conservation and the recognition nationally for better water supply. So next is item 7.2, which is Directors Akbari, Gunther, Huang, Sethy, and Weed for the May 3 through 5, 2022 Association of California Water Agencies Spring Conference. And in mine, I'll also add to the JPIA conference. So is there anyone who wishes to address the items that happened at Aqua?
Why don't we go in alphabetical order here?
All right, please, Director Akbari.
Okay. I'll keep it brief. I also left my notes at home, unfortunately. Very exciting conference. We obviously won the Claire Hill Award and we're there to receive it. So that was definitely a highlight of the conference. I had a chance to sit in on a few of the sessions. One was actually,
Glad you mentioned it.
Awesome.
Just happened to have Andy.
One of the things that we were heard quite frequently from a lot of the districts is that it's pretty clear that everyone is facing the same challenge of consumers not necessarily heeding the call to conserve. And so there was quite a bit of discussion around that. There was a session actually that Sanjay Gore, who's previously been a consultant for the district, sat in on, and he had a great line that I can't remember it exactly, but from a messaging perspective, he was talking about focusing the message on, we're not asking you to cut down on how much you're using, we're asking you to cut down on how much you're wasting, and you might not necessarily realize how much water you're actually wasting and could reduce your consumption by. And so I will pull up those notes and share those with the general manager. But yeah, great conference.
Thank you. If we keep going down then.
I think cheese next.
Gunther?
Yeah, it was actually, I came away from this one not totally depressed. Certainly maybe winning the Claire Hill Award was, a plus, but regardless, several of the sessions, one of the speakers I found to be, I'd say more positive than I've seen in the past. I don't know, maybe because of some of there's money at the state, but there's certainly a drought. And the first session I went to was regarding the moving forward on the infrastructure, and Secretary Crowfoot was there, Senator Laird, Jennifer Peary from the state water contractors. I thought she did an incredibly good job. And it was reasonably positive. I found Secretary Crowfoot and Mr. Laird, Senator Laird, they seem to be okay with spending money on infrastructure. There's a state surplus. The concept of using some of that surplus seems to have support. And I hope it carries through. That was the message I saw from these guys. And I'm hoping that message carries through at the state capitol. I mean, it's certainly a message I would like to see. There's a very, very large surplus. We've got all sorts of infrastructure projects, including the state water project. And, there's always been this thought of anything associated with water user pays. Well, there's a tremendous budget surplus. Maybe we can get some of that money to help some of these projects. And I think there might be that opportunity. Let's see. But that one, like I said, there was very, there seemed to be a mood in the meeting of, it was positive, working together, trying to press things forward, trying to get some of that budget surplus into infrastructure projects. The second one was the meeting regarding the meeting California water needs in a changing climate. Once again, it was fairly positive for the message that you can come away with this. We're in trouble, no question. Climate change, but the good news is there seems to be some identification to this, that that they were talking about projects necessary to assist those of us at our ends with what we have to do. It wasn't just, oh, you're going to have to give up this, you're going to have to give up that. There seems to be a recognition. One of the interesting ones that I came out of that was the concept of the runoff. And one of the things affecting the runoff is the dry soils. It's been so dry, it's affecting the runoff. We will get snow, but we don't get the runoff that we expect to get from the snow because of the dryness of the soils. That session was actually pretty good. I tried to attend Region 5, maybe directors, one of the other directors. The room was packed. It was hot. You couldn't hear. I got there slightly late, so I think I heard a couple of people speak in Region 5, but I'm sure there was a lot of good stuff said in there. I don't know what the temperature in that room was. And but it was great attendance, I'll say that, which is, you know, I've gone to previous Region 5 meetings and it would not have been a problem whatsoever with the number of people we've had in the past. This one, it was like half the conference was there. So, I mean, a great attendance for Region 5. So great, basically I couldn't get in the door. For Thursday, I went to the Sigma. Or first I went to voluntary agreements. Interesting. It seemed to be pretty good. I think there were a lot of people there saying, oh, this is a good idea. Randy record, status quo is not working. There seemed to be this, it wasn't all, it was more building trust, a lot about like what we've done with our project, I felt, working together. However, the Tuolumne River folks, San Francisco, they're not on board. There might be an ability to get some of them on board, not sure. It'll be interesting to see if they come on board. Hopefully they will eventually work towards a voluntary agreement so we don't end up with mandated something, you know, coming our way. And actually, I think I did skip over the, that was not the morning session. The Sigma was the morning session, and I did go to the Sigma. We're not greatly affected by the Sigma. However, we do water bank. And I wanted to see what was coming out of that. There are issues with Sigma. A lot of the districts or a lot of the groups are behind, but there are like 250 plans in place. So they made a lot of progress. The drought has really been impacting that. But one of the things they were dealing with was the water recharge, the concept of possible desal. I think our water banks are fairly safe. That's part of the plan. I don't think they're going to attack those with Sigmas. There certainly wasn't any mention of it in that meeting. The last one I wanted to comment on was the speaker at the lunch, and I don't think I could pronounce his name. Mr. Kamamura, I guess. He's the former California Secretary of Food and Ag, and he had a very positive message as well, in that, you know, we got to look at the glasses as half full. He also said, well, you need to know what's in the picture. Yeah, he's very positive, and he's been involved. One of the things he mentioned was very interesting. In 1920s, farming, we were using horses. And today, we're using, you know, practically, we're almost to the point of autonomous tractors. 100 years, and those impacts with agriculture. One of the things I really found was that the think tank, changing the think tank concept, I think, to the do tank. Their project down there it's a really interesting project. They are farming land that is not in use here and there and putting the food in food banks. Now, one little project, no big deal. When you add it up, it starts to make an impact. And I walked away from that guy impressed.
I liked it too.
Yeah, he was impressive. So I think in my opinion, it was a positive conference. I'm hoping that positive mood and flow can continue, hopefully come out with like money for projects moving forward, storage moving forward, conveyance or, moving forward, and restoration moving forward. They're all part of the same package. And that's kind of the feeling I came away with. So I'll keep it at that. It's a little long.
Okay. So I guess
Director
we'll
Huang?
start with Clear Hill. I kept my tag and I kept my ribbons. I still have the award finalist and the award winner ribbon. That's to say I was very proud of wearing it for the rest of the conference. So back to the conference, I think as Director Gunther has said, this was a very positive conference. I think this is the first time I walk away with an impression from our state and federal partners that they actually say, hey, we're here to help you. And by the way, we might have money behind our talk. That was impressive. Normally they would say, hey, we're here to help you, but you have to come up with the money. So that was actually great. It was a great feedback. And actually, as we were talking about the SRF loans, I would ask staff to keep an eye out to see if there are potential funding possibilities. Since it seems like our state partners, I guess we should look at state partners since federal partners probably will ask for the same prevailing wage requirement. So let's take a look to see if our state partners would have opportunities for us to either get a low interest loan or some sort of grant. So back to the conference, I'm just going to focus on one session that made me really, really happy and excited and actually quite positive. This was actually a session on the arrearage program. There we go. This is a program that is actually separate from the State Board's program, which ends June 15th last year. And I am trying to bring out the title. The title, it was a statewide issue forum on COVID-19 water and wastewater arrearages funding, what's new in 2022. What's exciting is that this program is actually put together, is being run by the California Department of Community Development. And what's interesting, California Department of Community Services and Development, what's interesting is that there's a one-time benefit, $2,000 benefit per customer to apply to their wastewater and water bills. And what's exciting about this program is we don't have to administer it. We just have to enroll. We basically provide the arrearage amount and we process the cost. The State Department, CSD, actually have local partners that will administer the program, check the eligibility. So it's actually a pretty good deal for our customers. And the term seems to be very reasonable. And actually, if there is enough participation, according to what they were talking about at the conference, is that if there's enough participation, they could make this as an ongoing program, not just a one-time deal. Apparently, there's currently a parallel program in the energy utility sector that is an ongoing program. So if we participate enough, the state could conceivably do this as a long-term annual program, which definitely will benefit our customers greatly. But as a fun side note, after the talk, I was all excited. I went down to the exhibition booth and say, hey, have we enrolled? Because a water district has to enroll. And the first thing they looked at my tag, they say, of course, we just talked to you, you did. My second question is, has Union Sanitary District enrolled? Because this is a water and wastewater program. The answer was, interestingly, no. The reason is Union San tried, but they are not currently eligible because they collect their bill on the property tax. Apparently, the Department of California CSD hasn't quite figured out how to work with the county to figure out how to break out that portion of the property tax and reimburse it. So that is a very interesting dynamic. The fact that, but I am just glad we're the way we are and our customers could take advantage of it. And I will commend staff that you promptly enroll in this program, and let's figure a way, once the program is in process, let's figure a way to inform our customers and give them the link, give them the resources to sign up for this program. Because apparently the local partners for CSD will actually walk our customer through the entire application process.
Yeah.
So once this starts, figure out how to get the word out. Thank you.
Mr. Miyake, if it's appropriate, I could give just a very brief statement on where we're at with this. Yes, so we have a letter that's going out next week to all of our Help on Tap customers to inform them of this program. The eligibility income limit is actually lower than Help on Tap, so actually not even every Help on Tap customer will be eligible. But Mr. Birch is also administering our participation in this program, similar to Help on Tap, and we are fully engaged.
Thank you very much. And thank you for being so proactive.
As I understand, this is a program being centrally administered by the state of California with an estimated 250,000 participants that'll have to deal directly with the state of California. And it's a one-time effort.
It's currently a one-time effort. Funds have only been appropriated for 1 year. And the day-to-day administrative work is actually done by local service providers who are the same local service providers that work with participants in the LIHEAP program, which provides similar low-income assistance for energy bills.
Okay. And we pick up the cost of administering this.
No, we just get money.
Yeah, we literally just get money.
All right, thank you.
So there's a website. Are you done?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Okay, there's a website for this community services group, and having gone through it, what they're really focused on is the arrearages that people had during the pandemic and delinquencies if they fell into a delinquent cycle. So the reason they're not able to work with the counties is because if you put your delinquencies on the property tax bill, you get 100% collection. So that's the reason why. So I have 4 things to report on. First, you'll see that I gave you a copy of what was posted to Aqua's website yesterday, which is collecting the service charges on the property tax bill. So this has taken 4 years of work to get down to a 1-pager. But there's a lot of thought that went into this, and now we have a much better understanding across multiple committees what the primarily the legal aspects are of trying to do this. So we divided it up into benefits and then the mechanical steps that are required. And this was passed out of the local government committee unanimously on Tuesday of last week. And Mr. Miyake's law partner, Claire Collins, my co-chair on this committee, reported it out as well in the Legal Affairs Committee. And State Ledge also took it up. So we also voted on continuing our working group right now through the end of the summer, because the next step that we decided on was to, although this is a fact sheet, this is factually what you can do, there are areas of the water code and the public health and safety code that could be cleaned up, because there's a lot of language that dates back to the 1890s and simply needs to be updated for clarity, especially for water-only agencies. So that's what we're going to work on, and then we're going to submit it into the aqua cycle that starts in September for new legislation. And then we will look for some sponsors. We already have a couple that are indicating interest, and then we will submit it into the hopper with the new legislative cycle in January. So that's the update on that. Number 2, at the beginning of the year, I was appointed by President Pam Tobin to the Aqua Outreach Task Force, which is was established for the purpose of helping other agencies and directors across the industry on their elected boards be able to communicate properly with their elected officials, the state and federal regulators, and the state and federal administrators on the programs they're dealing with. And the underlying reason why this was put together was that there are a lot of elected officials, unfortunately, that are good at shaking hands with people, but they cannot talk policy and they cannot represent their districts on specific pieces of legislation. And that's turning out to be a real problem for Aqua because they need people across the spectrum in California that can go and talk to their state and federal electeds. And it's even worse when they have to talk with their regulators or administrators. Fortunately, we have a very good staff that helps us with that. But we spent a day preparing on this on Tuesday afternoon, and then we spent Wednesday with a focus group where we invited people in. The room was really jam-packed, and the title of that session was called Tips and Tricks, How to Talk to Your Electeds, Regulators, Administrators. And I told a few people that that was the best 1 hour of fun at Aqua because there were so many creative ideas that came out. We split into work groups and I was the facilitator of one. And then we had to report back all the ideas that came out that people found successful in how they do these kind of things. So look forward to more on that. That was really a lot of fun. So Director Akbari and I attended Innovations in Water on Thursday. And I have heard some of these presentations before, like from Sonoma Water Agency on atmospheric rivers and how they manage Mendocino Lake and Sonoma Lake. And so that's always been interesting. And the other presentations were equally good. So the moderator was a deputy water director from DWR. And at the end of this hour-and-a-half session, I asked her very directly about applying some of these technologies that are coming out, like from Sonoma Water and other agencies, toward reoperation of reservoirs across the state of California. And why doesn't DWR put out a request for proposals? Because she was saying they want to spend more money, but then, and Director Akbari heard it, we almost laughed. She said, but we're bureaucrats, we're not innovators. But that was the whole point of the session, was what can we do innovatively? So I went up to her after this was over, and she thought I was being a little bit of a pest, but I wanted a straight answer from her, which was, why can't you innovate? Why don't you bring in some people that can help facilitate, with some new ideas? So she took my card and that was it. I think she's going to remember me in a different light. Oh, so Region 5 meeting. So I know how bad those rooms can get and how hot they are and how hard it is to hear. So I took care of business with Region 5 before that session with Jack Burgett and with John Varela and with Ms. Rotz, the Aqua rep for Region 5. So, and I invited Mr. Awoke to a very nice conversation about the history of water and Aqua and other things in California while we were sitting right outside the Aqua 5 meeting. And I said, you don't need to worry, we'll know everything afterward. So that was wonderful, Mr. Awoke.
Indeed, thank you.
Yeah, And so tomorrow they're having a 1-hour meeting of Region 5 from 1 to 2. And I put forward a proposal, which I'll be sharing tomorrow. They had an October retreat planned, but no one submitted ideas for what the retreat should be. So I'm putting forward one for a Monterey Peninsula and Salinas Valley focused like day and a half session. And so I put together the places and people that we can talk to and try to liven it up, make it really interesting. And so I'll maybe send you a copy. Sure. You can share it with everybody here. So those are my reports. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. First, on the JPIA, I want to thank the board for their support for my candidacy for the executive committee. I was not successful, but my name is out there. I did ask a question. PFM was the financer for JPIA and holds much of their money, about what they had any restrictions for social or political investments, including Russia. PFM, our former investment advisor, does have a small amount of Russian exposure. And JPI is going to further investigate that. I came back and asked our staff, we do not have with our current investments any Russian exposure. CalPERS does have a 0.017% exposure in their accounts and have said that they're going to be addressing it in the near future. At the Aqua Conference, oftentimes it's the side conversations which can be sometimes the most informative. And talking to Edgar Dimely, who is with the Met Water Quality and chair of the AWWA Water Quality Committee, expressed alarm, and I confirmed this with Mr. McIntyre, who's general manager at Dublin San Ramon, that normal wastewater treatment process create PFAS. And that the treatment, while they can treat the effluent to remove the PFAS, it does not address the issue of brine. And since we're talking about parts in the per trillion and discussions of making that a hazardous waste, the financial implications to recycled water could be very dramatic. It's part of the BAR program that we look at indirect potable reuse with Union Sanitary District. I would encourage us to address and make sure that we have a handle on the PFAS issue before we proceed down that path. It would also impact Bosca because, as I've noted, even with the support of Bosca, there is a policy to systemically replace the finest drinking water in the world, single-digit parts per million hardness, with sewage. And we're putting in more and more recycled plants. And there was even a suggestion of a regional collection facility to support San Francisco with the requirements for unimpaired flows. I passed out earlier an information sheet on property taxes, which I think supports Director Sethy's comments. I'll have, there are 2 pages to that, and there was some confusion, but there's been questions raised in the past about what happens to people who might lose their property. The state of California has a program to help low-income people to delay the payments on their property tax bills so they don't lose their properties. This is a statewide, well-funded program, and it's in place. We had Director Sethy and I went to dinner Monday evening Pierce Swan, and Matt Hurley. Matt Hurley is the general manager of the Macmillan Water Storage Groundwater Management Area, 200,000 acres of irrigated crops. And they have a program called Aquaterra, and they have on the market and trying to sell for at $750 per acre foot storage in their groundwater basin. And this is said storage is not a dollar amount per water, which we're paying about $300 an acre foot to semi-tropic. So that's something that would be much like his argument, much like buying into a dam such as Los Vaqueros, where you have dedicated storage. It's an interesting proposal. They have a unique geohydrology, which may allow them to recharge their basin without having to pay for recharge water, because they get the drain, the benefit from the neighboring districts, given their geology. We had a meeting with that Valley Water had called between ourselves, the South Bay Aqueduct contractors, Zone 7 ourselves. It appears that the cost raise on Pacheco, which went from a $500 million cost to Valley Water to now 1.3 billion on the middle level project, is such that they would be open to participation of up to 50,000 acre feet in the Pacheco Reservoir. I noted that we have 50,000 acre feet of unused storage that's built, plumbed, and paid for at Del Val. And but for a park, which is relocated for the third time, their visitor center at the bottom of that reservoir, on a lease which is due for the 50-year lease expires in 2024. That may well be a better, less expensive to relocate a visitor center than to pay the $10 million per 1,000 acre feet or $500 million for additional storage, whether it be at Los Vaqueros or at Pacheco. I had a conversation with Steve Ritchie of ACWD. I had been promoting that San Francisco become to the realization that if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. And there is what I will call a manifesto by 6 law professors and 2 former state staff people, which talk about which they published in February. Already has 3 pieces of legislation, including one by Bill Quirk, which calls for giving increased water rights to fish and making it far easier to forfeit your water rights. That should be make us nervous, and it goes to a basic policy in Western water law, a dictum. If you don't use it, you're going to lose it. So San Francisco should be out actively seeking additional customers for their water. At a well conference, I had a conversation with the representative from Vice Mayor of Tracy, pointing out that Tracy voters had voted not to join the San Francisco PUC back in the 1930s, but that the hydrology was there, that there was a new dam being proposed called Del Puerto, 85,000 acre feet, and that San Francisco should be looking at developing a water bank in Del Puerto, much like they have at Don Pedro, which would be a way to utilize the water and not impact it and protect those water rights. Dennis Herrera, it was Dennis Herrera wrote a letter to Crowfoot and the state pointing out that the current unimpaired flows were really an effort to take the senior water rights of San Francisco, MID and TID, of which we are the beneficiary, to address salinity problems in the Delta in lieu of the junior water rights of the federal and state government, which came late to the game with the State Water Project and the Central Valley Project. So we've got some big issues on the table here. Hopefully we can become more proactive and that Bosque can take a more proactive role in trying to protect those water rights. Thank you. So that is my report. If there's any support at all on the part of, there are two members of the board who've expressed support for putting delinquent water bills on the property tax statement, I would be happy to put that back on the agenda. There are three members who've expressed concerns about that. If any of those three members choose to rethink that position, I would encourage you to do so, and we will put it in. It takes a majority vote. Staff is fully supportive of it because it would increase our return on those delinquent bills from currently 20% to almost 100%.
Well, I'd say we do have that topic coming up at committee, at the finance committee in June, and then we'll be addressing it during the rates process too, as we move forward.
Right,
summer.
so President Weed, I would ask that we not put our fellow directors on the spot right here. We're going to have this presented at the finance committee, what I understood.
Right.
And we do need to clearly explain to the rest of the board and public what the business case is for doing this, and there is one. I will just share with you the whole board that at the local government committee meeting before we were reviewing this and just sharing ideas and thoughts, that a number of people said that this is a no-brainer for their districts, that this is something that they should have been doing a long time ago, and that it really boiled down to a lack of clarity and understanding in the industry that the people had this capability. And it's one thing to put your fixed charges on the property tax bill, but it's a much easier process to put delinquencies on there like East Bay Mud has done. And East Bay Mud has a really nice study that shows before they put their delinquent charges on the property tax bill, they only had a 10% collection. This is a report that they published. And that when they implemented doing this, it went up to 90%. They've been doing this for quite some time, quite a few years. And this is what was pointed out by other people who expressed experience at the committee that said, if at all, this is the first step that most districts should take, and that the risk is almost nil. The liability of being sued is almost nil. No one has been sued so far. And and we had it said here a couple of months ago, our success in recovering delinquencies is about 21%. The industry average is around 15, 16. So if we can improve that up to, closer to 100%, that's quite a bit of revenue for the district. So I'll leave it at that.
I would note that the collection agencies collected another 10%.
Is this on the agenda this evening?
We turned over 12, as I recall, 12,000 referrals to collection agencies.
Director Weed, I think this is coming up in our next meeting, the workshop, and I would like to discuss these concepts then. Thank you.
That's what I was suggesting.
Okay, fine. We'll put it there. But if a board member does have a desire, please contact the general manager if we can even expedite that. So, thank you. Then we have a closed session on here. Do we need a closed session this evening?
Yes, well, the board can elect to go into closed session. That's the plan right now. The board will convene into closed.
Evaluation, yes.
So board will now convene into closed session pursuant to Government Code 54957. The subject is public employee performance evaluation, and the employee is the general manager. And those online are free to hang tight, and there will be a report out after closed session.
I should have noted, I was wondering if we were going into a separate room, but if we can do it here.
No, we'll actually be going into a separate room.
Now we're back into open session It's 10:08. In closed session, we took no action.
Yeah, I can just quickly mention that the board met in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54957 to conduct a performance evaluation of the general manager. The board conducted the evaluation and no action was taken.
Thank you. Let's see, if we have,
Yeah, the next item is 9.1.
flip the page. Get that down. Okay, 9.1 is the appointment of designated representatives for the labor negotiations between the district and the general manager, an unrepresented employee for a possible amendment to the general manager's employment agreement. Do we have a suggestion for whom that committee should be?
Either Judy or John, or me or John.
Well, traditionally, it's been the president, vice president.
I know, Paul, you were saying you're pretty busy though, right?
So,
Well, just to keep the tradition in line here, I'll do it.
all right. Fine, thank you, then. Does that require a vote
No,
of the board?
we need to
make a
motion.
right?
Yes, we need a motion and a vote.
So I'll make the motion. I'll make the motion for Directors Weed and Director Sethy to act as the agency appointed negotiators.
I'll
And-
second.
Okay. Thank you. Roll call, please.
Director Sethy,
Yes.
Akbari,
Aye.
Gunther,
Aye.
Huang, aye, and Weed.
Aye. The agenda calls for another closed session for the conference to the agency representatives, and then having to come back, everyone having to come back. Is there a feeling that we need yet another closed session on this, or might we go for adjournment and then have the two
I would,
negotiators meet with the general manager?
I would think the negotiator would like some sort of direction or ceiling amount from the board before you start negotiating in between now and July or June.
Well, that's my point. If you would like to have that, we will go into closed session and give us,
If not, I would say without giving the negotiator directions, I don't know what the negotiator would be negotiating with the general manager, since they would have no authority to actually negotiate any amount.
all right, fine. If you wish to follow that process, we can. And then we will go then into a closed session.
Okay.
and-
Let's make this.
That's
simple.
right. Item 10.1 is pursuant to California Government Code Section 54957.6. The board will now convene into closed session pursuant to that government code section. The subject is conference with labor negotiators and the agency designated representatives are President Weed and Vice President Sethy, and the unrepresented employee is the general manager. And now we'll convene now into closed session. Okay, just reporting out now out of closed session. The board met in closed session in accordance with Government Code Section 54957.6. The board met with its labor negotiators and the board provided direction to its labor negotiators.
All right, that's true. Do we have any other items or to business before the board? If not, we are herewith adjourned at 12:17. Oh, excuse me, 10:17. 10:17.
So you should
So
say
40
12.
in there. Good.
Okay, I think that's adjourned.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, yay.